Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden. In this video, I'm going to answer the question, what programming language should I learn first? And I'm going to tell you up front that I'm biased. So I do web development. I build stuff with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on the front end, and on the back end, I also use JavaScript as well. I have a computer science degree and a long history of development where I actually have done other things. So I've written apps in Python, I've written apps in Java and C#. When I was in university, I was writing stuff with like C and C++. I have a lot of experience with a lot of other stuff, but these days I mostly just work in the world of web development. Now, when you're asking the question, like, what programming language should I learn first, there's actually another question you should ask yourself, and another question that needs to be answered, which is, why are you even learning to program? Because there's a lot of different reasons. We got suggestions from the chat as to like why might people want to learn to program. One of them was, well, actually, I came up with this one. Do you want to build cool things that other people can easily access and use? My answer for that is web development, and I'll come back to this point. And honestly, this is going to be my main point in why I think web development is the best versus all of these other programming languages. But here are some other questions. Do you want to get a job? Do you want to make games? Do you want to impress somebody? Do you have a billion-dollar idea? Do you want to analyze, process, and visualize data? Do you want to learn to think critically? Do you want to build things to solve your own problems? Do you want to be a hacker? Do you want to make creative visualizations? And there's probably a lot of questions, other questions that you could ask, but just saying, oh, I want to learn to program, there's probably some sort of underlying thing that has made you want to learn to program. And for most people, it's, oh, I want to make a whole lot of money because I heard that learning to program, I can get a job that pays a lot of money. So we're just going to run through each of these questions, and I do have some notes here, but for the most part, it's just going to be off the dome. I'm just going to be talking at it, and we'll see what comes of it. So ultimately, the main reason that I suggest web development technologies being the first thing that you learn is that the things that you build are very, very easily accessible and distributable to people in the rest of the world. You could build a website, and literally anybody in the world can go there and use your website. And then once you start to learn a bit more about JavaScript and making things interactive, you could build interactive applications that run as a website, put it on the internet, give someone a link, and literally anyone in the world can go there and use that thing. So like, that's why I think this is the best place to start, because for the most part, when you're building things, you typically want to share them with other people, and it's really easy to do that with web development. All of these other things, it's not so easy to share what you've built. So if you wrote something and built something with Python, in order to get someone else to be able to run your code, they need to either install an executable that includes Python, or they need to include Python, download your Python script, and then run your Python code. Similarly, if you want somebody to run your Java or C# program, you have to send them an executable. They have to have either the Java runtime installed or the .NET runtime installed, and then they can run your executable. But also, sharing an executable is like a really hard thing to do. Basically, like, when you write code in this way, it's going to generate a .exe. If you're wanting to learn to program, you've probably heard of a .exe before. And these types of programming languages will create .exes, but it's very hard to distribute those things. And so like, if you make a really cool, let's say like drawing app with Python, the only way other people are going to be able to use that is if you literally send them an executable, and then they can download it in some way. Now, again, like, you could learn about the app stores, and you could put them on the Windows Store or something like that. But that's a whole process in and of itself. With web development, literally all you have to do is put it on the web, which is actually very easy these days, and then you can share it with a lot of people. Yeah, depending on the executable, you may not need a runtime, but my argument still stands that you have to share an executable, which is not easy. Like, you can't just email an executable. Most email programs are going to like basically not let you do that because the potential for like viruses and other stuff like that. And that's the other thing, is if you want to distribute your code in this way, other people have to know that they can trust you, right? It's really, anytime I run an executable, and I don't run executables that often, you always have to question where that executable came from. And also, those executables could be really large. So all of that to say, my very first point is that, like, if you want to build things that are very easily accessible by other people, choose web development. And like, the first place for that is just CodePen. Like you could literally go to codepen.io right now, sign up, and then just click start coding. And then it has a place where you can put your HTML. So throw an H1, hello world. I could throw some CSS. Let's make that H1 have a font family of sans serif. And now it looks a little bit different. And then I can add some JavaScript. Let's say when someone, Comic Sans, when someone clicks that H1, I want to just do an alert that says, hello world, like this. And now I can do that. And then if I click this, did I do it right? Oh, no. I said I have to add an event listener for click. Event name. Yeah, thank you, Codex. And then now if I click this, it says hello world. So it's that easy to get started with web development. And that's my main argument. So if I actually log in here, let me log in really quick. All right, there's going to be a cut because I actually had to log in order to save my changes. So if you're going to use CodePen, log in first so you don't lose your changes. But if I save this, that's going to give me a unique URL. And then also I can go to the full page view. I can literally share instantly. I can now share this link with anyone in the chat. Click that and it should work. You should be able to click hello world. Oh, wait, maybe not. Did I do it wrong again? Yeah, there should be a capital L there. Oh, man. Okay, now if you click that link, whenever you click on hello world, it should say hello world. But this is my whole point is that, okay, this is one way to write some code in the browser. It says download executable. It shouldn't. When you click that link, literally anyone in the world can go to this link. If you have access to the internet and you're not in a country that blocks access to this website, you can go here and you can see the code that I wrote. Now, this is super basic, but I could do a lot of other things. Actually, the CodePen website alone is really cool to show you some of the things that people have built with web technology. So this is just an iris. Wow. So they built this completely with a technology called Canvas, which basically allows you to do graphics inside of the web browser. So this code here, and I think it's some WebGL code, is what they use to build that iris. That's amazing. Let's see what else. Parallax scroll animation. Scroll down. Oh, that's so cool. And then so you can see the HTML, the CSS, and the Java. You can literally see all the code that people wrote to make this thing work. Oh, that's sick. Wow. And again, you can share it with anyone. My only point in showing you this is that it is incredibly easy for you to write some code like this and then make it available to other people. And you cannot, it's not that easy with these other languages and frameworks. And that's why I think like one of the big motivators of learning to code is first of all, the satisfaction of solving a problem and doing something, and then also doing something cool. And then second, sharing that with someone else. Like after you've done something really cool, you want to be able to show other people what you've done, and it's a whole lot easier to do that. Now, I see comments in the chat. So like Killer is mentioning, now all you have to worry about is the inconsistency between browsers. That gets into the intricacies of web development, and there are a lot of web browsers like Firefox and Chrome and Edge and Safari, and sometimes they do things slightly different, and that is one thing that you have to worry about. But for the most part, most things these days will work across all browsers, which is why I recommend web development. And the things that I just clicked on are the things that were recommended. We probably could have done some work ahead of time to come up to show you some really cool examples of things you can do with web development. But that's the thing. Yeah, now you could argue, sure, there's like Replit or Python Sandbox, but you're not going to be able to like launch a GUI. It's probably just command line at that point, right? So this is going to be cut into the video somewhere because I forgot to mention it. All this time I've been saying you should learn web development, but I didn't actually tell you how you can learn web development. I have a YouTube video called Free Online Resources to Learn to Code. I'll link that in the description. There I talk more in depth about these things, but these two projects, freecodecamp.org and the Odin project, are both completely free online curriculums where you can learn to code learn web development from scratch. So I'll put this into the video somewhere, but those are resources that you can use. Yeah. And then I also would recommend the Mozilla Developer Network, because this is a completely free website. that has tons and tons of resources and guides on how to learn web development. And you can completely start here. They have everything you need to learn web development, and it's completely free. So that's another thing to check out as well. Okay, here's the Mona Lisa with pure CSS. Let's check it out. They just loaded an image. That's funny. But I mean, at the end of the day, technically it is the Mona Lisa in pure CSS. They literally took this image and then just loaded it into the page. That's funny. Yes. Okay, rant over. That's why I think web development is the first thing that you should learn, because it's so funny, because I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit on r/learn programming and pretty much r/learn programming, where someone was guided to learn Python or learn C#, and they built the thing and they're like, okay, how can I actually share this with people? And almost always the answers are extremely convoluted. Well, you need to compile it, and then you need to share that compiled file. And I guess you could upload it to Google Drive or Dropbox, and it's so convoluted. If you want to build things and share it with people, web development is the way to go. Now. Let's give all these other languages the benefit of the doubt and talk about when they might actually be a good first choice in learning to program. If we're answering the question, do you want to get a job? Hands down, there are more web development jobs out there than any other programming language. It's huge. And web development is such a large umbrella term. Like, it's typically put into front end and back end, and typically back end you could build a web back end with any one of these languages. But what's nice is you can also build a web back end with JavaScript, and that means you only have to learn one programming language. So everything you learn about JavaScript for the most part can be reused, and you can use that to build out a back end. If you want to get a job, I suggest web development. And also the type of job depends as well. There's so many gotchas with this, but also if you want to get a job, I might suggest C# or Java, because these are used at really large companies. So Java is typically used in large enterprise. C# is used in large enterprise, and if you know one or the other, you could probably learn the other. But that would be my second choice there. And then and probably Python is right along there, but there are a lot of enterprises and such that are using Java and C#. Yeah, I don't have PHP on here. But you could still technically learn it, but I don't think it should be your first programming language. Technically, it was my first programming language, and then ActionScript was my second. The other answer to do you want to get a job is you should probably search job postings in your area. So search for entry-level web developer or entry-level Java or entry-level Python, and see what jobs are available, because there are certain parts of the United States, which is where I'm from, where Java is more popular in enterprise, whereas there are other parts of the United States, typically closer to like Seattle and Microsoft, where C# is more popular. But it'll vary. So I recommend looking at job boards, and that might give you an indicator of what you would learn first. And then especially, like, if you do see web development jobs in your area, you might see them posted for like React or node.js. These are the types of things that you would search for. Okay, do you want to make games? I would argue that Unity and C# is probably one of the easiest to get started with. Because Unity is a platform, a software development kit for building games. And what's nice about it is the games that you build here can be published to like the indie game markets. They can run, some of them can even be published to run inside of a web browser. So it actually is easier to distribute them if you do it that way. And a lot of indie games have actually been written with Unity. I have very minimal experience with Unity. I just know it is one of the things that a lot of people will reach for, which means if you're going to do that, then you can learn the C# language. There's also the Unreal Engine, which a lot of AAA games have been written in. Again, I don't know a lot about games. Anyone in the chat, can you tell me a AAA game that's been written in Unreal? But if you do that, you typically are going to learn C++. And then honestly, with both of these, like, not only are you using the base language, you're using their SDK. So a lot of the stuff that you're doing is specific to Unity or specific to Unreal. Fortnite was built in Unreal. Nice. I mean, that's it right there. I should title this video "How to Build Fortnite" or something like that. But yeah, so Fortnite was built using Unreal. You could build Fortnite if you wanted to. And okay, Oscar is mentioning you actually don't even need C++. They have another thing called visual coding, which is probably like drag and drop. That's another thing. The other aspect of web development is you can do a lot of things with it. So you also can build games with web development. There is this game framework called Phaser.js that lets you build games that run inside of the web browser, which is pretty cool. The reason that I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as like your first game is because, or a game that you want to distribute to a lot of people, is because you can't really get games written in Phaser.js running on a PlayStation or running on Xbox. You can do that with like Unreal and Unity. You can actually get them into the indie game store. Though, if your game is just running in the web browser, that's totally fine too. And then people have mentioned Pygame. I haven't written in any Pygame, but that's a thing that you could use as well. This is all high-level advice. Honestly, if you're watching this video and you're mad at my advice, feel free to drop a comment as to why you think the programming language you recommend is better, and why you think people should learn it first. Let's quickly dive into these other questions. Do you want to impress somebody? Probably web development. Like you could literally, okay, let's say this. You're a kid, you've got a crush, and you want to impress her. Go to CodePen. Go to CodePen right now. Build her something, or him, her or him or they, whoever they are. Build them something really cool, and then send them the link and say, "I built this for you," and then you can impress them. Do you have $1 billion idea? My answer is don't learn to code. Pay someone else to do it. That's my answer to that. I'm not even going to expand on it. You can just laugh in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. Do you want to analyze, process, or visualize data? Python is probably your best choice. So there's a whole field of programming and coding called data science, and Python is used extensively for that. You can do a lot of really cool things with Python in terms of analyzing data, creating charts, and stuff like that. You could actually also do it with web development, though Python is probably the go-to choice. But there are charting libraries and various things that you can do and build within web pages as well. But typically, if it's a lot of data, you might need to use Python or something like that. Yeah. Do you want to learn to think critically? Any. Like, one of the aspects of learning how to program is learning how to think in a very specific way. Because when you're writing a program, the computer is going to do exactly what you tell it to do. And nothing more. You put the instructions in and it's going to do exactly that. And if you're not used to that, if you're used to thinking in more general terms instead of exact terms, programming is going to help you do that. So regardless of what programming language you choose, you are going to learn to think more critically, and it's actually going to affect your daily life. Like the way you think about problem solving in general is going to change if you learn to program. Build things to solve your own problems. Honestly, the answer is any here too, because you're not necessarily going to be distributing this, so you don't have that issue I talked about earlier in terms of trying to figure out how to distribute those things. So pick any, and honestly, if you're doing it all for yourself, you could give all of these a go. Like it doesn't, in a single day, you could try building a simple like hello world with all of these, read their documentation, and get a good idea of which one you actually want to start with. So that's my answer there. Do you want to be a hacker? Probably Python. There's a lot of like scripts and utilities written in Python. There's like the social engineering toolkit and stuff like that. And that's more so if you're like a penetration tester or like a social engineering type of hacker. If you want to be a reverse engineering kind of hacker, or like someone that writes like malware and stuff like that, probably C++. And then Oscar is mentioning C or Go, and then just like network programming. But like basically, if you want to hack into like existing applications, or you want to write vulnerabilities for operating systems and stuff like that, you're going to need a lower level language. If you want to do like higher level scripting and higher level programming, Python is going to be a good choice as well. And technically, a lot of the scripts that are written in Python, you could write in node.js and JavaScript as well. Do you want to make creative visualizations? P5. Or processing. The Processing Foundation has this whole SDK for creating creating interesting visuals. So processing itself, you actually write with Java. but you can make really cool visualizations. A lot of people have done like interactive art installations and stuff like that with this. And then if you want to do it on the web, you can use P5.js. Yeah, so I got that wrong. So it's all processing, the processing foundation. P5 lets you do it with JavaScript. And when I say JavaScript, I mean web development. And then processing itself, you do with Java. And I think they have processing for Python as well, which is cool. But you can do a lot of really cool stuff with this. And I definitely recommend checking out Coding Train over on YouTube. So he has a ton of tutorials and also just really cool interactive things that he's built, and a ton of really cool videos. And this code playlist will teach you to learn how to code, but it uses P5.js and the P5.js web editor. So in a way, you're doing a little bit of web development, but the things you're doing are specific to P5. So I wouldn't say that everything you learn here is completely transferable to like getting a job in web development, but in general, you learn creative coding, you learn what programming is, all of that good stuff. So definitely check that out as well. Codex in the chat actually brought up a great point and a great question that I didn't answer, which is, do you want to work with hardware? Because there are actually some, I mean, the answers might be the same here, but ultimately this would let you do things like Internet of Things. So like, do you want to write code that allows you to press a button on your phone that then opens your garage door? Or do you want to write a program or work with some hardware that makes it so that when you come home, your lights turn on in a specific way? Now, of course, you can do this all off the shelf without programming, but you also can write your own custom programs to do that. So one of the platforms you could use for hardware is known as Arduino. This is a microcontroller, and typically you use C or C++ to program that microcontroller. However, there are things that allow you to program it using JavaScript and node.js. A framework called Johnny 5 lets you do that. The issue, though, is that the code you write isn't running directly on the Arduino. It's actually communicating over USB, so the Arduino has to stay plugged in. So typically this doesn't work as well if you're trying to like build a mobile robot or something like that, because it has to be plugged into the computer. And then Pyformata is a similar thing, but it lets you use Python, but similar restriction that it has to be plugged in over USB. Then there's this idea of single board computers. That is, they are literally a full computer that's running Linux, which means technically you could use literally any programming language that you want, though you'll typically see things written for like GPIO, which is general purpose input output. Let me put that here, GPIO. And typically you use either Python or Node.js for that, though like I said, you could use any one of those other programming languages. There's also a platform called Espruino, and this is a board that actually runs JavaScript, so that's cool. And then there's these embedded controllers called SB32 and SB8266. There might be some other ones. These are similar to Arduino, but they're much smaller. And I think typically you'd have to use C or C++ to program against those. So that's the hardware aspect here. I think that's all I have to say about this. Again, this was a bit of a rant of sorts, but hopefully you got some good information out of it. And if you're learning to code, let me know down in the chat. What is the first programming language that you're learning? And also, like I said earlier, if you disagree with me, let me know why you would disagree with me. We'll see ya. Thank you for tuning in. Follow over here on Twitch, and you can be a part of the live conversation. So yeah, bye. Everyone say bye, YouTube. Content